Like, what happened? Did you know that you wanted to be a full-time artist? Did you work? What was that like?
So obviously, you know, my senior year at Ringling, you're just like in your studio all day long, and it's my studio is my favorite place in the world, so it's phenomenal. So I graduated college, and that was my goal, was to just get back to being full-time in my studio. But I did work for a little while as an anatomical artist for a synthetic cadaver manufacturer. So it was like a very specific job. I was sculpting out of silicone muscles and organs, making these full synthetic bodies for teaching hospitals. So it definitely fit, you know, exactly what I'm doing on a daily basis now in my paintings. But, you know, my goal was to get back into the studio. I really wasn't getting enough time when I was working, you know, 40 hours a week. So luckily I won an award that was able to fund me enough to let me quit my job. So that was very nice. And,
what was the name of the award?
So it's from the VSA and the Kennedy Center. They have an emerging artist program where they choose 15 artists in the nation to win these awards. And so I won first place with them. So they flew me out to Washington. I got to do like a bunch of talks and seminars and meet Congress people. It was very, very interesting, but it also came with some funding. So that was able to help me quit my job and focus on my studio.
I mean, that's amazing. That's a true testament to you being an emerging artist, right? I mean, to get that right away is great. Which piece did you submit for that? Was it one of the ones behind you, or was it a separate piece?
Well, it was, I mean, you know my work very well, Danielle. So it was art that's exposed with like a canvas flap hanging down. And so that piece actually is in the collection of the Kennedy Center. And up until coronavirus has been traveling the nation in museum exhibits. So yeah, so they have that piece for 2 years actually.
Nice. Was that one of the pieces from the Art Center? I think I've seen that in one of the shows there too before this.
It was, I don't know if it's been at the Art Center, but it was in my thesis show for sure. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, let's dive into your work. I mean, so you talk about this love for science and anatomy, and yeah, can you just kind of explain your subject matter? Let's start kind of aesthetically first. And I mean, there's bright colors behind you, but let's.
Yeah. So aesthetically, I've always been really inspired by cartoons. I love, you know, the bright colors. I love the super flat style of cartoons. And before I started doing the anatomy, I did more pop culture and cartoon-based work. And then I just think anatomy is so beautiful. So I started delving into that as a subject matter. But, you know, I've still kept like the cartoon kind of flat art style, you know, mixing with the anatomy, but certainly color is probably primarily what I love and what I'm good at, I guess. So.
Yeah, definitely those highly saturated colors. But I know in your statement, and we talked about this, kind of reinventing or rediscovering anatomical drawings and kind of your vision of that, especially with scale too, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I personally love looking at anatomical diagrams, but they're kind of boring, you know, to the general population. They're usually black and white or very, you know, natural, you know, bodily colors. And so I wanted to take that and see if I could put a new spin on that, see how colorful I can make them, how, you know, like bright and interesting, how stylized I could make the form. So I started really playing with that. And the major thing was scale. So I started working on this. This painting behind me is 4 foot by 5 foot. And so that's kind of like my sweet spot. Like I love that scale. I love you know, taking something that is life size and magnifying it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I think that does something really special, you know, about exposing people to their own anatomy and really confronting viewers with, you know, like the inside of a neck, and it really makes a statement at that kind of scale. So
yeah, it's definitely conversation.
Yeah, and I like that. I want to stop people and have them look at the painting for, you know, as long as I can captivate them.
Yeah, but the colors are kind of whimsical too, right? So where do you pull the colors from? Do you just kind of make them up as you go?
A little bit, yeah. So I certainly look at references for my paintings, anatomical references, to make sure I get things, you know, mostly accurate. But I always look at them in black and white.
Okay.
'Cause I don't want to be influenced by, you know, the colors that are portrayed naturally. So I just kind of start choosing colors, and when I've chosen one color, like the next color plays off of that, and I'm just trying to build up this really like eclectic kind of palette in every painting. So there's not a whole ton of like rhyme or reason. It just kind of happens naturally.
Yeah, and you describe your style as hard-edged. Can you kind of define that for anyone who doesn't know that name, that style type?
Yeah. So hard edge to me means when two colors come together and there's like a very crisp hard edge in between them. So it's related to like geometric abstraction and color field paintings, also optical art. And so like Frank Stella, Peter Halley, these really big
Yeah.
names in this movement, yeah, they've certainly influenced my work. So I wanted to take hard edge and take it out of just being color field or just being abstract, and see if I can make something that's super organic and usually in painting would be super blended, and make that appeal digital with the hard edge. So yeah.
Cool. Great. Are there any other artists that are working contemporarily that we might know of too that are working in this hard edge? I mean, we know Griffin Goodman because he's shown at the
Yeah.
Art Center and went to Ringling, right? But he's in Chicago. Is there anyone else that's heavily influenced your work that if someone's interested can also look up?
Yeah, I think LA is kind of, in California, is kind of the hub for this style in a contemporary sense. So artists like Matt Gondek and Nichos and Buff Monster, they're all three artists who are fine artists in a gallery sense, but also do murals. And they do this like very colorful cartoon, hard edge kind of style. Definitely influenced my work, so.
Nice, great. Okay, well, let's talk about it beyond aesthetics, conceptually. So we know you come from the science background, but your statement kind of touches on this whole world of kind of social justice and the, you know, pharmaceutical companies. So yeah, I mean, has that changed over time too? I know your work is kind of adapting as you pull out of school and your home, but yeah, talk a little bit about that. I'm familiar with your landscapes, particularly. I love those. So
Yeah. So I don't have behind me because it's way too long to fit in this room, but the major part of my thesis was this 21-foot long landscape that addressed like a number of very lofty kind of topics as you talk about, but mainly the pharmaceutical industry. Um, I've always kind of seen both sides of the coin with that, both the positives and the negatives of the pharmaceutical industry. And certainly as I've come out of school, I've still continued to explore that. So definitely like the business of medicine and the business of, you know, medication and the pharmaceutical industry is definitely something I'm always trying to touch on in my work, and not so much say like, you know, it's good or it's bad, but just like bring that conversation to light that I don't think, you know, the majority of people know about, you know, the lobbying that goes on, you know, all the money that gets funneled into big pharma. So definitely something that's always in the back of my mind, whether it's like very apparent in my paintings or not.
mhm. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do a screen share here so we can look at your website. Let's see if it works. Let's see, so that we can kind of talk about that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Sorry, guys. There we go. All right, because I think there's another great piece that really talks about using, your skills as an artist to bring up that narrative, and it's your pill fly piece too. So there's these painted pieces here, but this installation, here's the large landscape that you were just speaking about. In Big Pharma, we trust.
Yeah.
So this is just one section, these 3 pieces, right? This is just
yeah. So they're all, it's 7 panels, 7 2-foot by 3-foot panels. Just breaking it down that way just made, you know, kind of practical sense. So the photographs are all each individual panel.
Right. So let's just talk about this one a little bit. So you've got these pill flies, medicine bottles, teeth. I mean, are you just syringes you're pulling from your own experiences here, or you're just touching on symbols in the field? That kind of.
I mean, you know, definitely medication is pulling from my own experiences. I have an autoimmune disorder, so I've kind of been on medication for years and years and years, and have seen, like, you know, certainly the very positive benefits from that, and also like the side effects from that. So this pill fly kind of came to me out of nowhere. And as a part of this landscape has kind of infiltrated this landscape, because I think in our American healthcare system, we have a tendency to over medicate. So I think of these pill flies as just like constantly being everywhere, being all throughout this landscape. So that's really the significance of them, and they continue to be like a large part of my work.
Right, and they're quite invasive. That installation piece, I'm panning through here, let's see if I can get back to it, really kind of shows them swarming out of these pill containers. Yeah, and this was laser cut, right? This was.
Yeah. So I started using the laser cutter at school to make these, and I probably made like over 100 of these pill flies. Not all of them made it into this. But since then, like, I've fallen in love with laser cutting, so that's continued to be like part of my practice.
Great. Well, I'm going to pull it back to us unless there's any other piece you want to pull up from here. This is Savannah's website. It is meltingmagnolia.com. Feel free to visit it. Let's actually talk about this one right here. This is a new piece, right?
Yeah, this is my most recent piece. It's like a very personal piece. I mean, to everyone who knows me, they immediately can like pick out all the elements from it. But there's part of my landscape in that piece, and then the painting itself. So the little room in the brain is my studio. So the painting itself on the easel there, and then my dog Cotton, who is always in my studio with me. So yeah, so it was a very personal piece. I'm obviously very attracted to neuroscience and the brain, so it's been a huge, guiding force in my subject matter recently. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I love this because we were talking last week, and this is your at-home mid-pandemic painting, and it's not dark, it's just internal.
Yeah. It was actually for a contest that the idea behind the contest was happy place. And so, this is really my happy place, is being in my studio with my dog. So yeah, it's, even in the midst of this pandemic, try to stay positive about it. So yeah.
And it's right behind you now. So you're still living with it in your studio.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so let's just check Facebook, see if we've got any questions real quick. Let's see. We've got quite a few people watching, which is awesome. Philomena says your landscapes are fantastical, ominous, and playful all at once.
Thank you. I like that description.
Yeah, Haley Denham's stopped in. Let's see, Lisa, Shannon Fortner's here, John Pierman. This is great. If you guys have questions, feel free to put them in those comment sections. I just see a bunch of people saying hi, but we're here to answer those questions. Savannah, let's talk a little bit more about what you are working on right now. So we were talking about small pieces, right? Do you have a couple of those in the studio you could pan through?
Yeah. So actually today I finished this piece. And if anyone has followed me on Instagram or seen my work before, I've been working on a series of these, like small square MRI pieces. So this is the 7th painting in that series. So it's the most recent piece I've done, but I've also started working like very tiny. And there's resin on this painting, so it's gonna be very reflective, but I've started working on like very affordable art, especially in light of the pandemic, like just trying to get art into people's houses and, obviously trying to make a living as well. So it's been nice to like make these little paintings that I can kind of get my ideas out more quickly with. So
Yeah, I think those are great. I mean, they still are playful and fun, but again, these kind of interior seams that I'm not used to from you, but I like this. I mean, I like the switch in terms of a reflection of what you're experiencing at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. These are actually like my own house plants that it's very reflective, but my own house plants that I have in my house. So, the anatomy is kind of where my heart lies, but I'm always trying to, just go through different subject matter and, trying not to get like tired of this or make other people tired of this. So yeah, so it's been nice to work on a smaller scale to do that.
Nice. Do you where do you source your MRI scans from? Have you gotten an MRI? Do you use your own at all, or are you pulling from where?
So this painting actually, behind me, this larger MRI painting, was based loosely on my own MRI scan. I've had like chronic migraines my whole life, so I've had quite a number of MRIs. And every single time I get one, I ask them to give me a copy of my MRI. Nice. So there's definitely been some source material, but Harvard actually has like a whole bank of like, free MRI images, and you can scroll through all these different people's brains and use the images. So that's been like a major resource for me, especially with different conditions that I don't have, to be able to look at other people's brains. So yeah.
It's kind of odd, but cool at the same time. I'm glad it's a resource. So Elizabeth had just asked that question. I just happened to see it. There's another question here for you. It's kind of a technical one. What type of paint do you get, or do you use to get your great saturation? From Jane Powell.
So that has been the question for years now, that I have sought to answer for myself. I used to use primarily Liquitex, heavy body paint, and I was just like really drawn to that brand. But since then, I've started using Holbein, which is like a bit more rare. They don't carry it in every single store, but the like opacity of that paint is phenomenal. Like it can't be beat. I've used Golden, obviously, but like Holbein, I've done, little swatch tests, and Holbein hands down has the best opacity. But still, for these paintings to get that kind of saturation and that pop, it definitely takes anywhere from 2 to 20 coats of paint.
Wow.
So very, very, like this whole painting, over the whole surface, I've probably painted 2 or 3 times with different coats of paint. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of labor. So how long does it take for the larger pieces? I think you mentioned once maybe you're using house paint also to cover the ground, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I started getting those like samples of house paint from Home Depot, to do the backgrounds on these larger pieces, because it's cost effective, and actually like the opacity of these, like Behr, the brand, their house paints is phenomenal. So I have like 50 samples probably in my studio of those that I've been using. So
nice. Do you mix all of your colors, or are you pulling some of those straight from the tube to get that richness?
It kind of depends. I am a big fan of straight from the tube, which was not necessarily like good with my teachers going through school, but I do really like straight from the tube occasionally. But especially when I'm working with like all different kinds of muscle tones and vein colors and highlights and shadows. Like I'm also constantly mixing paint.
Mhm. It's also a great way to keep the body of work consistent too, right? So I see kind of a repeated pink tone in those two pieces,
Mhm.
which I'm sure
Yeah,
is indicative of that a bit.
yeah. I actually have like a brain pink that I use, and then I have a brain pink highlight and a brain pink shadow, which is also used for the muscles in this neck piece. So everything is kind of labeled based on the organ that I usually use them for. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, you talk about your kind of meticulous need to keep everything kind of, I don't know what the word is, in your studio to keep it clean, and that you're pulling that from your science background too, right? Like a laboratory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is, right behind me. I have all these paintings, but on the other side of my studio, I have like a meticulous organization of paints. This whole like tray that I've created, and everything's color coded, and yeah, everything has to be, very, very organized.
I didn't ask this yet. How do you start a piece? I mean, I know you're referencing the images, but do you sketch it out? Do you grid? Do you project? I mean, where do you go just to start?
Yeah. So I started just like looking at lots of different reference materials, and I'll kind of gather like a couple of different images, like different views or different, just different things about the same subject matter. And I'll take those images and composite them together in Photoshop or something like that, and kind of play around with like a rough composition of what I want it to be. But in terms of sketching, I more so do a lot of writing. So my sketchbook is like just hardly any sketches, like and maybe every other page is sketch, but it's a lot of writing, because I really like to think about what's behind an image before I start painting it. Like, is there enough there conceptually before I start painting it? So I really like to have kind of this dialogue with myself and my sketchbook about a piece. And then once I make that composite image and I've kind of decided to move forward, um, I will sometimes project like the basic outline of things, to get the proportions on this whole neck. Like I would, sketch out, projected like the neck and the, jaw and whatnot. But then, like I said, I look at the reference image in black and white and just kind of go from there with the colors. So
Okay, I'm going to check again to see if we've got any more questions. Okay, Tracy has a great question for you. She said she was looking at your Etsy page and saw that you've got the jewelry on there, some of those laser cut pieces. She just wants to know how you feel about bringing your art to the mainstream America in the future. Is it going to continue as jewelry? Is it going to continue as small pieces, murals maybe? Well, yeah.
yeah, so I'm actually wearing like a piece of the laser cut jewelry right now. Like I said before, I've like fell in love with laser cutting because it perfectly falls in line with that hard edge style. Like it's you can't get a more perfect cut than a laser cutter. So I actually got a grant and was able to get, behind me here, my own laser cutter. So I started just trying to translate my paintings into woodcuts, into, these are actually acrylic, so into acrylic. And then my friends, were like, can you make earrings of these? Can you make necklaces of these? So it kind of started as just like a project, just to have fun with. And a lot of, these are acrylic, but my other earrings are all still hand painted, even though they're, on a very small scale. So it was just kind of a fun project, but then it kind of took off from there, and I started the Etsy page, and it's kind of in recent times like really blossomed. So I definitely like making the jewelry. I don't want that to be my full-time job. Still my passion lies with the paintings, but it definitely is like a nice breather if I've been in the studio working on paintings all day long, to work on that or to fill orders and things like that. It's a nice breather. Definitely helps pad my income. So I
Yeah, I
don't
was
know
gonna
about.
say for another fellow young artist, supporting you by buying jewelry is a bit easier than
Yeah,
buying a 5 foot painting.
yeah, exactly. I mean, this is what I love doing, but this is also what I love doing because I would love for like everyone to have, a small piece of my work. So I don't know about like mainstream America, giant brands. I don't I don't think anything like that, but I do like everyone being able to have some part of my work. So
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of feeds into my next question here. We've got one more from Jane Powell, real quick. She said, "Have you ever thought about incorporating your houseplant ideas in your anatomy paintings, kind of combining the two?"
oh, my house plants. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I haven't until now, but I have done like before. None of them shown here, but maybe on my website I have some with like interior spaces or architectural spaces. Because I am very interested in like what people keep in their house, and like so for me I have like 32 house plants, so that became like a main subject matter for me because it's what I keep in my interior space. But actually in making the brain piece behind me with my studio in it, it made me think about like creating rooms in organs, like maybe I have like a little bedroom in a stomach, or something like that. So I think maybe houseplants will definitely make an appearance in my anatomy painting. So yeah, it's a really good question though. Good idea.
Yeah, because you talk about approaching anatomy and the bodies and the way that we view our own bodies in a different way. So, why not push that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wanna just see, explore every idea I can with the organs and with the anatomy.
Yeah. So the next question I had was, other than the Etsy shop, I know that you've been pretty, I would say, successful in the shows that you've been a part of and your future shows coming up. For anyone who's not listening, again, this is Savannah Magnolia. Her website is meltingmagnolia.com, so she has all of her future exhibits on there. But Savannah, maybe you can highlight some of the ones that our viewers might recognize.
Yeah, so I've obviously done a decent amount of shows in the Sarasota area, particularly with art centers, like one of my favorite, galleries to work um, with Sarasota, and now I live in Tampa actually, so with Tampa. But in terms of like larger exhibits, I mentioned the Kennedy Center before, so that's probably been like the biggest thing I've done. Back in December, I was also at Art Basel, so that was
Fantastic.
cool.
Yeah, don't be humble. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, so that was pretty cool. And now I'm just like really trying to branch out. I love Florida, but I'm trying to branch out a little bit from the Florida art scene. And I actually have a show that opens online tomorrow with the GABA Gallery in Los Angeles. So it's all like a virtual show, a virtual group show. So actually, like, this pandemic has been a bit helpful in that sense because a lot of galleries are approaching things digitally. So it makes it easier for me to get into shows that are far away that normally I couldn't ship my artwork to. So
Yeah, that's a great kind of helpful tip to other artists who are looking to exhibit right now. I think because our show's online as well. I mean, shipping a 5 foot painting is expensive.
yeah, definitely. That's kind of been my like key to things since graduating, is just like I'm constantly searching online. I'm constantly looking at like call for entry and sites like that, and just like applying to things, or reaching out to galleries, talking to different people, just constantly trying to get out there. So
Yeah, and you've got the, are you part of the Skyway exhibit as well? Okay.
I am. So that was supposed to open in, I think, about a month. I'm going to be at the St. Petersburg Museum of Fine Arts, but it has now been postponed until 2021, that summer, next summer. But they're releasing a bunch of content soon, a bunch of interviews with the artists, and I'm actually doing a video for them. So they're trying to like keep things alive until next year. So
Okay, I mean, that's fantastic. That's such a great show to showcase
Yeah.
your work. I mean, you're in Tampa now, but from being in Sarasota, that's a nice little bit of a branch out, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what I liked about that process is it wasn't just an online application. Like once you made it to the second round, the panel of curators and judges for that, I actually had a studio visit with them, so that was pretty cool. It's not just based off of your work, but based off of like your overall studio practice and yourself as an artist. So
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And then for anyone who doesn't know, we're going to release it right now. Savannah will also be having a solo show in 2021 at the Art Center. So
yeah,
congratulations.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, I haven't told anyone about that yet, so yeah.
Well, you've got some time. You've got a year to make some work and promote it and get excited about it too. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Let me just check to see if we got any more questions here. If not, is there anything else we didn't cover that you want to mention real quick?
I don't think so. This was pretty in depth and really fun to do. So
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad we got to see your work. Thank you so much for being a part of this. It's our first one, so we'll keep doing this every week. And again, Savannah Magnolia, meltingmagnolia.com. She's on Instagram, Facebook, Etsy, all over. So,
yep.
so check her out. And thank you so much, Savannah.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for everyone who joined us Facebook Live. We'll see you next week at 5 o'clock.